Hey you guys, I'm going to read out loud from the Living Environment Review book. I'm going to read out loud chapter 1. And notice that while I'm reading out loud, I'm also going to be doing some underlining with my orange marker on things that I think are important. Okay? Earth's living environment is made up of millions of diverse organisms, from towering redwood trees, sleek antelope, and mushrooms that grow in huge circles, to microscopic bacteria, one-celled organisms that turn the tides red, and the students in your class. These living organisms are both similar to and different from each other. They also differ from non-living parts of the environment. Although that difference may seem obvious, scientists have not been able to agree upon a simple definition of life, the characteristics of life. Although there is no simple definition of life, most scientists agree that living things share certain characteristics that distinguish them from non-living things. Living things are organized structures. All are made of one or more cells, which are the basic units of structure and function. They maintain their cellular organization throughout life. Living things use energy to maintain life and to grow and develop. These activities require that cells carry out various chemical reactions. The combination of all the chemical reactions that occur in an organism is called metabolism. Living things maintain a fairly stable internal environment, even when their external environment changes drastically. The maintenance of this internal stability is known as homeostasis. To maintain homeostasis, organisms must respond to and adapt to both their internal and external environments. Living things pass hereditary information to new organisms of the same type in the process of reproduction. Only living things share the characteristics of life. Non-living things have no functioning cells and no metabolic activity. They do not maintain homeostasis, nor do they reproduce. Diversity among living things. Although living things share the characteristics of life, there are differences among the many kinds of organisms. Throughout history, people have tried to bring order to all the variety of life on Earth by grouping or classifying them. Several classification systems have been popular at different times. As we learn more about the similarities among organisms and how they carry out their processes of life, classification systems change. Currently, biologists classify organisms into kingdoms, which are large groups of related organisms. Although living things have many differences, they are also alike in important ways. The first similarity is that they share the characteristics of life. They are made up of cells, reproduce, maintain homeostasis, and carry out metabolic activities. They also share similar life processes, chemical composition, and organization. Life processes. Living things are similar in that they rely on a variety of specific processes to maintain life. Organisms may differ in the way they carry out these processes. However, some of these life processes include obtaining nutrients from the environment and breaking them down for transport, transporting materials throughout the organism, breaking nutrients into smaller units to release the chemical energy stored in them through the processes known as cellular respiration, combining simple substances into complex substances during a process known as synthesis, increasing the size or number of cells through the process of growth, removing waste products from the organism through the process known as excretion, responding to internal and external stimuli, and reproducing more of their own species. Chemical composition. All living things are made of 4 main elements: carbon, hydrogen, oxygen, and nitrogen, as well as many other elements in smaller amounts. The elements combine to form molecules. Organic molecules contain both carbon and hydrogen. Organic molecules include all of the major molecules of life: structural molecules such as those in cell walls and membranes, as well as biologically active molecules, such as the enzymes that help carry out the chemical reactions of life. DNA, proteins, fats, and carbohydrates, such as glucose and starch, the organic molecules. Inorganic molecules do not contain both carbon and hydrogen, but contain any other combination of elements. Inorganic molecules include salts, minerals, most acids, and bases, oxygen, carbon dioxide, CO2, and water, the most abundant substance in any organism. The shared organization of specialized structures that works together to accomplish a specific task, and another similarity of living structures. In other words, organisms share a similar building plan, the basic structural and functional unit of living things in cells. Simple organisms may consist of just one cell. Complex organisms consist of billions of cells. Most cells contain specialized structures called organelles, which have specific life maintenance functions. This organization of cells in increasingly specialized structures is the basis for how much of the complex life on Earth. Complex organisms have several advantages over simpler organisms. For example, many complex organisms can explore their environment or gain energy in ways that simpler organisms cannot. In Figure 1.1, notice that organizational structure of organisms resembles a pyramid with a base of cells. In multicellular organisms, groups of specialized cells may be grouped into tissues to expand how they function. For example, a single muscle cell would not be strong enough to move any organism, not even one as light as a hummingbird. Grouped with other muscle cells, however, muscle tissue can move an elephant. Different kinds of tissues may be combined to form an organ. That performs one of the life processes. Several organs may work together as an organ system that also performs one of the life processes. For example, the heart is an organ with the function of pumping blood. The organ may be a simple arch like the heart of the earthworm, or maybe a complex four-chambered structure like the heart of a monkey. In either case, the organ's function is to pump blood. Each heart is part of an organ system that transports materials through the body. Review questions. Number 1. State 2 ways in which a single-celled organism, such as an amoeba and a human cell, are alike. You might want to look for this answer in the first couple paragraphs, the characteristics of life, and then go over to similarities among living things. Number 2, one characteristic of all living organisms is that they 1. Make food, 2. Live on land, 3. Maintain homeostasis, or 4. Move from place to place. Again, you can probably find that here under life processes. Number 3, which sequence is listed in order from the simplest to the most complex? 1. Tissue, cell, organ system, organ. 2. Cell, tissue, organ, organ system. 3. Cell, tissue, organism, organ. Or 4. Organism, tissue, organ, organ system. That's going to be found in the text right above in the organization section, right here. And number 4, a student brings a specimen and claims it is a living organism. Explain how a microscope could be used to determine if the specimen is a living thing. Number 5, a biologist would most likely study all of the chemical activities of an organism to obtain information about the organism's 1. Number of mutations, 2. Reproductive cycle, 3. Development, or 4. Metabolism. Number 6, cells are to tissues as organs are to organ systems, cells, genes, or organelles. Number 7, the ability of an organism to maintain internal stability is known as 1. Metabolism, 2. Homeostasis, 3. Circulation, or 4. Excretion. Number 8, state 2 ways living and non-living things differ. Number 9, which statement about cells is not true? 1. One or more cells make up all living organisms. 2. Cells carry on the basic life functions of living organisms. 3. Cells contain structures that carry on life functions. Or 4. Most cells cannot reproduce. Number 10. Living things are made mostly of these 4 main elements: hydrogen, oxygen, nitrogen, and protein. Water, protein, carbohydrate, and fat. 3. Carbon, hydrogen, oxygen, and nitrogen. Or 4. Glucose, salt, mineral, and base. Number 10 might be a tricky one to find, but it is going to be under this section here, chemical composition. It's going to be found down here in one of these 2 paragraphs. Cells, the basic structure of life. Many of the world's organisms are made of only one cell, but all organisms, no matter how simple or complex, are made of cells. Each cell contains a jelly-like substance surrounded by a thin membrane. Most cells also contain organelles that perform specific tasks for the cell. Despite their seemingly simple structure, cells carry out the process of life and function together in a coordinated manner. Inside the cell. The jelly-like substance inside the cell is known as cytoplasm. The cytoplasm contains specialized structures, transports materials through the cell, and is the site of many chemical reactions associated with the cell's metabolism. Organelles. Organelles are formed by many different molecules and vary in size, shape, and function. They interact to transport materials, extract energy from nutrients, build proteins, dispose of waste, and store information. Figure 1.2 shows several vital organelles. Plant cell, animal cell. Nucleus. The nucleus is a large structure that controls the cell's metabolism and stores genetic information, DNA and chromosomes. Many people think of the nucleus as the cell's control center because it directs the cell's activities. Vacuoles. The storage sacs within the cytoplasm are vacuoles. They may contain either waste or useful material such as water or food. Some vacuoles are specialized to digest food. Others pump excess water out of the cell. Vacuoles in plant cells are usually a lot larger than vacuoles in animal cells. Ribosomes. The cell contains many tiny structures called ribosomes that are important in the process of making protein. That's very important. Some of the ribosomes are attached to membranes in the cell. Others float in the cytoplasm. Mitochondria. Mitochondria are pod-shaped structures that contain special proteins known as enzymes. Used to extract energy from nutrients. Mitochondria are sometimes called the cell's powerhouse. Mighty mitochondria, as Mr. Stebbins would say, because they release most of the cell's energy. Chloroplasts, the green structures found in plants, and some one-celled organisms are called chloroplasts. They contain the green pigment chlorophyll and capture light energy, which is used to produce food for the plant. Animal cells do not contain chloroplasts. Review question 11. Which structure is the boundary between a living cell and its environment? 1. Cell membrane. 2. Cytoplasm. 3. Vacuole. Or 4. Ribosome. You'll be able to find this answer right here in the first 2 paragraphs of the cells, somewhere in there. Number 12, the structures labeled A, B, and C, and D in the following diagram below represent 1. Organelles, 2 organs, 3 nuclei, or 4 mitochondria. So, very similar to here. What are all of those different things called? Number 13, the cell nucleus functions 1. In obtaining energy for the cell. 2. In the storage of the digestive enzymes. 3. As the center of control for cell metabolism and reproduction. Or 4. In the transport of materials throughout the cell. So, you're going to find information about the nucleus in this paragraph right here titled Nucleus. Number 14. The genetic material of an animal cell is found in the... not to give it away too much, but you're going to find that answer in the same paragraph. Number 15. In the diagram below, structure A is most probably a what? 1. Mitochondrion, 2. Ribosome, 3. Vacuole, or 4. Nucleus. So you might want to compare it to something in this cell right here. Number 16, current evidence indicates that ribosomes are most closely associated with, so information about ribosomes is going to be found in the ribosomes paragraph, right there. Number 17, mitochondria are organelles that store digestive enzymes, package cell products, release energy from nutrients, or manufacture cell protein. You're going to look at the mitochondria paragraph right above the questions. Number 18, which cell organelles are most closely associated with energy changes in a plant? Keyword there is in a plant. Is it 1, mitochondria and chromosomes, 2, chloroplasts and mitochondria, 3, chromosomes and nucleus, or 4, chloroplasts and nucleus? You might want to look for that information in the paragraph just above. Number 19, which is the most accurate statement concerning protein synthesis in cells? Proteins are synthesized by mitochondria in all living cells. Proteins are synthesized at the ribosomes in all living cells. Proteins are synthesized at the ribosomes in the plant cells only, or proteins are synthesized by nuclei in animal cells only. So, for any information about proteins, we had circled a lot of interesting information down there about proteins on page 5. The cell membrane. The cell membrane is a thin structure that surrounds the cell. It is made mainly of fats with some proteins embedded throughout. Some of the functions of the cell membrane include separating the content of the cell from the outside environment, controlling the transport of materials, including waste products, into and out of the cell, recognizing and responding to chemical signals. Cells are organized internally. Without the cell membrane, this organization would be lost. Unlike animals, plants and most bacteria fungi have a cell wall outside. The cell membrane. This wall of plant cells is made of non-living material that surrounds the cell and gives it strength and rigidity. If the plant gains too much water, its membranes could burst. The cell wall helps prevent this. If the cell is to survive, then the membrane cannot totally separate the cell from its environment. Some materials, such as water, oxygen, and nutrients, must pass through the membrane and into the cell. Other materials, such as waste products, must pass out of the cell. Molecules can enter or leave the cell through either diffusion or active transport. Diffusion. Molecules are constantly in motion. As they jiggle, they bump into one another. They bounce away like bumper cars at an amusement park. In time, the molecules will have bumped and bounced until they are evenly distributed. The result is that the concentration of molecules in any container remains approximately the same everywhere in the container. However, when the concentration of molecules is greater in one part of the substance, molecules will spread into areas where their concentration is lower. The movement of molecules from areas of high concentration to low concentration is called diffusion. Because diffusion results from the normal jiggling of molecules, it requires no outside energy. It is like sledding downhill. Many molecules diffuse. I'm going to highlight that. Many molecules diffuse into and out of cells. One of the most important of these molecules is water. The diffusion of water into and out of cells is important in the maintenance of homeostasis. For example, plant cells maintain a stable balance of water and dissolved minerals. This is typically about 98% water and 2% dissolved materials. When salt is spread on roads and walkways, the balance changes. The runoff water from these salted roads may reach concentrations of 5% salt. Damage can occur when water in plant cells diffuses from the higher concentration in the cell to the lower concentration outside the cell. Under these conditions, the loss of water places serious stress on the plant. In some cases, the plant may die. Active transport. Moving from a molecule from an area of low concentration to an area of high concentration is like pulling a sled uphill. It requires energy. Cells must use energy from ATP to transport molecules from areas of low concentration through the cell membrane to areas of high concentration. This process is called active transport. So active transport is from high to low. Active transport is from, low concentration to high. So I'm going to put active transport. It's going from low to high. And I'm going to put a little note over here that diffusion is going from high to low. Many desert plants use active transport to bring water, which is a low concentration in the soil, into root cells where the water concentration is higher. Some pond organisms use active transport to collect calcium or other minerals that are in very low concentrations in the pond water. Molecules in cells, both organic and inorganic substances, are dissolved in cells and are involved in the chemical reactions that maintain life. Some organic molecules, such as proteins and starches, are too large and complex to enter the cell. Large molecules must first be broken down into simpler molecules in the process known as digestion. So the breaking down of large molecules is digestion. The digestion of proteins results in small molecules of amino acids. The digestion of starches results in simple sugars. Digestion is vital because only small molecules such as amino acids and simple sugars can enter blood vessels or cells. When some nutrients from our food enter a cell, they become the building blocks of compounds necessary for life. This process, called cellular synthesis, is like manufacturing simple molecules such as amino acids and sugars are assembled or reassembled into more complex molecules of protein, starches, DNA, or other substances necessary for life. Not all nutrients are used as building blocks. Some nutrients that enter a cell are broken down even more to release the energy stored in their chemical bonds. This is a process of the cellular respiration. All of these processes will be reviewed in detail in later topics. Recognizing signals. Scientists have learned that certain protein molecules in the cell's membrane can receive chemical messages from other cells. These molecules are called receptor molecules. So I'm going to remember receptor starts with an R, and so does receive. When cells are part of a larger organism, receptor molecules play an important role in the interactions between cells. As shown in figures 1 through 6 and 1 through 7, chemicals produced in the endocrine glands, called hormones, and chemicals produced by nerve cells are primarily responsible for communication between cells. If nerve or hormone signals are blocked, cellular communication is interrupted and the organism's homeostasis may be affected. Last set of review questions for this chapter. Number 20. Defective receptor proteins on a cell membrane have the least effect on 1. Homeostasis, 2. Muscle activity, 3. Nerve cells, or 4. Diffusion. 21. In the following diagram, nerve cell A is communicating with nerve cell B. Identify the structure present on the membrane of the nerve cell B that enable it to detect a message from nerve cell A. Number 22. Which process accomplishes the movement of gases illustrated by arrows in the diagram? So notice the CO2 is going into the cell. O2 is going into the cell and CO2 is coming out. Is that 1. Excretion, 2. Diffusion, 3. Active transport, or 4. Chemical digestion? 23. In both plant and animal cells, the cell membrane 1. Produces enzymes, 2. Controls reproduction, 3. Is composed of sugars, or 4. Regulates diffusion. 24. Since the relative concentration of water in the pond in which a paramecium lives is greater than the concentration of water in its cytoplasm, water molecules constantly move from the pond into paramecium. The best long-term solution to the problem of maintaining a stable internal environment is for the paramecium to 1. Change the water and carbon dioxide and excrete it, 2. Store water molecules, 3. Incorporate water molecules into its structure, or 4. Actively transport water molecules outside its cell. Number 25. A biologist diluted a blood sample and distilled water. While observing the sample with a microscope, she noted that the red blood cells had burst. This bursting is most likely the result of which process? 1. Staining, 2. Diffusion, 3. Digestion, or 4. Active transport. A student using a compound light microscope to study plant cells observed that most of the cells resembled the one shown in the following diagram. Which diagram best illustrates how the plant cell will appear after being placed in a solution that has a lower water concentration than the cell? Number 27. Amino acids tend to diffuse from a blood capillary to the adjacent cell because 1. This is the only direction they can move. 2. The brain directs the movement into the cells. 3. The cell needs amino acids to make protein. Or 4. The concentration of amino acids is lower in the cell. 28. In the following diagram of a plant cell, the small circles represent water molecules. Which statement best describes the behavior of most of these water molecules? 1. They move from region A to region B. 2. They move from region B to region A. 3. They do not move in either direction. Or 4. Their overall movement is equal in both directions. 29. Nutrients that are not used as building blocks for the cell may be broken down to release the energy stored in the chemical bonds. This process, which provides cells with energy, is called chemical synthesis, cellular respiration, digestion, or homeostasis. Number 30. Cytoplasm in a plant cell will shrink if the cell is 1. Placed in a concentrated salt solution. 2. Kept warm and moist at a medium light. 3. Placed in distilled water. Or 4. Exposed to a different concentration of nitrogen gas. 31. The diagram below represents a cell in water. Formulas of molecules that can move freely across the membrane are shown. Some molecules are located inside the cell, and others are in the water outside the cell. Based on the distribution of molecules, what would most likely happen to these molecules after a few hours? 1. The concentration of C6H12O6 will increase inside the cell. 2. The concentration of CO2 will increase outside the cell. 3. The concentration of NH3 will increase inside the cell. Or 4. The concentration of O2 will increase outside the cell. Number 32. A cell containing 98% water in its cytoplasm is placed in a 2% salt solution. It should 1. Lose water, 2. Gain water, 3. Neither lose nor gain water, or 4. Gain salt because of the high rate of diffusion. Number 33. A cell is placed in distilled water and then transferred to a 5% salt solution. As a result of this procedure, the cell would be likely to 1. Get larger, 2. Get smaller, 3. Get larger then smaller, 4. Get smaller then larger. 34. A high concentration of calcium salts is normally found with the cytoplasm of a certain protozoan, while surrounding the environment contains a lower concentration of calcium salts. The higher concentration of protozoan is most probably the result of 1. Diffusion, 2. Excretion, 3. Active transport, or 4. Cellular dehydration. 35. A student prepared a normal wet mount slide of Elodia leaf and observed it with a compound microscope. He then made drawing A from his observations. His second drawing B shows his observations of the same cell after it was mounted in a 5% salt solution. The results are most fully explained by loss of water from the cell, entrance of water into the cell, shrinking of the cell wall, or an entrance of salt into the cell. Multicellular organisms. Multicellular organisms can be highly complex. They require multiple organs and systems to complete their life processes. These systems must interact to maintain the life of the organism. Humans are complex organisms. Their specified cells must interact to maintain life. Humans require a variety of organs and organ systems to complete the life processes of digestion, respiration, circulation, excretion, movement, coordination, and immunity. Digestion. The human digestive system is a one-way passage through the body. This passageway includes the mouth, stomach, and intestines, as well as other organs. Food enters the body through the mouth and is moved slowly through the system by muscular contractions. The food never actually enters the body tissue. Instead, it is broken down both mechanically by chewing and chemically. This produces molecules that are small enough to pass through the cell membranes and that can be transported to wherever nutrients can be used by the body. Undigested food is eliminated from the body as solid waste. Respiration. The process of respiration uses oxygen to break down food molecules to release energy. The function of the respiratory system is to the exchange of gases between the blood of the circulatory system and the environment. The system takes in oxygen for cellular respiration and transfers it to the blood. It also removes carbon dioxide, a waste of cell respiration, from the bloodstream and releases it from the body, as shown in Figure 1.9. The lungs and nose are part of the respiratory system. Circulation. Circulation involves the movement of materials inside the cell, as well as the movement between parts of the multicellular organism. The function of the human circulatory system, shown in Figure 1.10, is to transport materials through the body. The system carries digested food and oxygen to cells. It also carries waste from cells to the lungs, kidneys, and the skin for excretion. The blood vessels of the system also carry chemical messengers, or hormones, and the proteins that attack foreign substances to give the body immunity. The human circulatory system includes the heart, blood vessels, and blood. Excretion. Many people confuse the process of excretion with the removal of waste products of digestion. Excretion, however, actually is the removal of all the waste produced by the cells of the body. The human excretory system, shown in Figure 1.11, which is on this page here, includes the lungs, kidneys, as well as sweat glands in the skin. Movement of the body involves the interaction of muscles and bones. The muscular and skeletal systems, shown in Figure 1.12, work together to provide movement and support for the body. These body systems make it possible for the organism to avoid danger and to find food, mates, and shelter. Coordination. The nervous system and endocrine system, shown in Figure 1.13, which is over here, control the coordination of many of the body's activities. Together, these systems respond to and send messages to cells throughout the body. The nervous system sends signals along nerves. The glands of the endocrine system produce chemical messengers or hormones that travel in the bloodstream. The brain and nerve cells are part of the system. The endocrine system includes several glands such as the pancreas and ovaries or testes. Immunity. The immune system increases the body's immunity, its ability to resist disease. Some white blood cells of the immune system engulf and destroy invading bacteria and viruses by digesting them. Others protect the body against specific foreign invaders. Reproduction. The process in which organisms produce new organisms of the same kind is called reproduction. The reproductive system releases sex cells and hormones that are critical to the creation of offspring and the regulation of their development. The human reproductive system allows for sexual rather than asexual reproduction. Sexual reproduction makes it possible for two individuals to produce offspring that are the same species, but not exactly like either parent. Interactions for life processes and regulation. Like all organisms, the human body systems continually interact to perform life processes. Examples of these interactions may involve several systems. Nutrients from the digestive system are transported to cells by the circulatory system. The functioning of the reproductive system is regulated by hormones from the endocrine system. Body systems also continuously interact to maintain a balanced internal environment, homeostasis. To successfully accomplish this, humans and other complex organisms have a variety of control mechanisms that constantly monitor and correct deviations that could throw the body's internal environment off balance. Examples of these control systems include the regulation of body temperature and blood sugar level. When body temperature drops, nerve impulses from the brain signal the muscles to shiver, which generates heat and the warm body. Blood sugar level is constantly monitored, and hormones are released as needed to keep it at acceptable levels. If any organ or organism does not function properly, the entire organism may fail to maintain homeostasis. The result may be disease or even death. For example, if the heart fails to beat regularly, the circulation of blood will be affected. This may result in a failure of certain materials. Oxygen, for example, to flow through the body. Without oxygen, cells may stop functioning and death may result. The organelles of single-celled organisms are far less complex than organ systems of multicellular organisms. However, organelles and organ systems are equally capable of completing metabolic activities. For example, the paramecium in figure 115 has a specialized organelle, the food vacuole, that digests food. The human digestive system is more complex and also digests food. The organelle and organ system accomplish the same function, breaking down nutrients so they can be used by the organism. Comparing humans and other organisms. In most biological respects, humans are like other organisms. Humans have much of the same chemical composition as other organisms. All organisms, from bacteria to tulips to humans, are made of mainly carbon, hydrogen, oxygen, and nitrogen. These elements combine in different ways and amounts to form carbohydrates, proteins, and other essential organic molecules. Humans are made up of different kinds of cells that are similar to those found in other animals. For example, human muscles, nerves, and blood cells are similar in structure and function to the muscles, nerves, and blood cells of other complex animals, from geese to gorillas. Humans have organ systems and physical characteristics that are similar to many other complex animals. For example, worms, frogs, and pigs have digestive systems that break down large food molecules. They also have systems that circulate blood. Pig hearts, in fact, are so similar to human hearts that they can be used for transplants. Humans reproduce in the same way as many other organisms. For example, fish, amphibians, reptiles, birds, and mammals reproduce sexually. The sperm and egg combine, each contributing half of the genetic information to the offspring. Humans use the same kind of genetic information as other organisms. Like nearly every living organism, from E. coli bacteria and fruit flies to roses and dogs, humans use DNA as their genetic material. Number 36. Organisms remove metabolic cellular waste by the process of excretion, absorption, coordination, or digestion. Number 37. A similarity between the nervous system and the hormone secreting system in humans is that they both 1. Are composed of the same type of cells. 2. Are composed of many glands. 3. Help to maintain homeostasis, or 4. Secrete chemicals directly into the blood. 38. The diagram below shows an air sac surrounded by the thin-walled blood vessels of a human lung. Which two body systems are interacting in the diagram? Respiratory and coordination, respiratory and circulatory, digestive and circulatory, or reproductive and coordination. 39. Finding shelter, avoiding predators, and obtaining food are most closely related to the ability of an animal to 1. Use structures adapted for movement. 2. Increase the rate of mitosis. 3. Transport carbon dioxide to cells. Or 4. Excrete waste products of metabolism. Number 40. Which letter in the diagram below indicates a cell structure that functions primarily in the synthesis of protein? A, B, C, or D? Number 41. Inhaling carbon monoxide reduces the ability of red blood cells to carry oxygen. This can lead to brain damage. Which three systems of the body interact in this situation? Digestive, respiratory, and circulatory, immune, circulatory, and digestive, respiratory, circulatory, and nervous, or excretory, nervous, and respiratory. Number 42. The activity of all human body systems is coordinated by 1. The secretion of hormones in the nervous system. 2. The interaction of nerve impulses with the excretory system. 3. The movement of digested food by circulatory system. Or 4. The secretion of hormones in circulatory system. 43. Which two systems are most directly involved in providing molecules needed for the synthesis of fats in human cells? 1. Digestive and circulatory. 2. Excretory and digestive. 3. Immune and muscular. Or 4. Reproductive and circulatory. 44. Organ systems of the human body interact to maintain a balanced internal environment. As blood flows through certain organs of the body, the composition of the blood changes of interactions with those organs. State one change in the composition of the blood as it flows through the respiratory system. This concludes the review questions for chapter or topic 1.